Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Summer of 1972, shortly after midnight. The air was heavy that night, thick with a humidity that stuck to your skin like used oil, and that unmistakable metallic smell of gun lubricant that seems to soak into every centimeter of a military base. This was not a troop exhibition or a public relations event with city photographers. It was a closed-door challenge inside a hangar with no records, one of those places that officially do not exist on base maps. The golden rule was simple and brutal: one chance without gloves, without press witnesses, and absolute silence guaranteed by the weight of a possible court-martial. What was about to happen behind those reinforced concrete walls was never supposed to see the light of day. If the man the world knew as the Little Dragon failed, his reputation as the most dangerous man on the planet would die that same night, buried under the anonymity of the Pentagon's classified files. I have spent 30 years moving through rundown gyms and military bases, from the plains of Arizona to the jungles of Southeast Asia. I have seen men break bones for nothing and analyzed combat reports that would turn a civilian's stomach. My job has always been to separate propaganda from pure fact, movie choreography from the reality of mud and blood. That is why when you hear stories about Bruce Lee, you normally expect myth, a legend inflated by Hollywood, but this time it is different. I have access to veterans' diaries whose owners prefer to remain in the shadows. Men who were there when the lights went out and the cameras stopped rolling. And what those diaries say paints a picture the Army preferred to leave in the realm of urban legend to protect its own pride. It all began 3 weeks before that summer night with a letter Bruce should never have answered. But Bruce was not just an actor, he was a man obsessed with efficiency. The tension was not born on a movie set under neon lights, but in the heart of the American military elite. A Green Beret sergeant, a veteran with 3 tours in Vietnam, a man who had survived jungle ambushes and knew exactly how to end a life with his bare hands, launched the final insult. To him, Bruce Lee's kicks were simply a dance for the cameras, an aesthetic technique useless in the brutality of real war where there are no second takes. That man was known among his peers as the Titan. He was almost 1.90 meters tall, weighed 100 kilos of hardened muscle, and carried on his body the scars that validated his arrogance. The Titan was not a street bully, he was a state-trained professional killer. He represented the absolute belief that muscle mass, brute strength, and life-and-death combat experience could crush any Eastern philosophy, no matter how fast it was. The setting to resolve this dispute was a private gym near the base, neutral ground where high-ranking officers could observe without leaving an official trace. It was a small but lethal court. There were a handful of colonels, a couple of close combat instructors, and a sergeant major acting as the bridge between both worlds. A man who respected Bruce's discipline but trusted blindly in the lethality of his own soldiers. Bruce arrived alone, without entourage, without bodyguards, dressed in civilian clothes and with a calm many in the room confused with arrogance. To the military present, that slim 65-kilo man looked like easy prey before the mountain of muscle that was the sergeant. The air in the hangar became so tense you could cut it with a knife. No one spoke, only the hum of generators and the distant echo of a military truck moving across the base. The sergeant major gave the instructions. The Green Beret would attack with everything, without restrictions, and Bruce would have only one chance to stop him. There would be no rounds and no rest. If Bruce did not neutralize the attack at first contact, he would lose the challenge and all his credibility with it. What few knew was that Bruce had spent weeks studying not the man, but the psychology of military training of that era. He knew the Titan would trust his weight. He knew the sergeant would attempt a tackling charge designed to break ribs and take the fight to the ground where his mass would make him invincible. The Green Beret began to warm up in a way designed specifically to intimidate. He started striking wooden boards with his shin, breaking them with a dry sound that echoed through the hangar beams. His movements were explosive, loaded with controlled aggression meant to shatter Bruce's confidence before the first blow. Bruce, on the other hand, remained motionless. His breathing was deep, almost inaudible. He was not watching the boards break. He was watching the sergeant's feet, observing how he distributed his weight. A young recruit present, a man just starting his training who years later would recount this in a veterans bar in Virginia, confessed that at that moment he felt sorry for Lee. He thought the actor had entered a situation he would not walk away from. He looked like a child before a bear, the recruit said. What that young man did not understand was the economy of movement. The sergeant major raised his hand. Time seemed to slow. The Green Beret lowered his center of gravity, preparing for the devastating charge that had served him in Saigon alleys and Fort Bragg training. Bruce simply adjusted his stance a few millimeters, not raising his hands in a classic movie guard. He stayed relaxed with his arms at his sides, defying all combat logic those soldiers had learned. It was a mental game before a physical one. The Titan growled and launched himself. It was a total attack. 100 kilos of inertia at maximum speed. He was not going to punch Bruce Lee, he was going to run through him. Most expected Bruce to jump back or attempt a spectacular roundhouse kick the sergeant was ready to absorb. Then came the part that was never supposed to leave that hangar and that defies traditional combat physics. Bruce did not retreat a centimeter. Just as the giant's shoulder was about to collide with his chest, Bruce executed an almost invisible hip movement. It was not strength against strength, but a redirection of trajectory using only the palm of his right hand on the attacker's shoulder and a lateral step like a sigh. It was an absolute technical expectation break. The Green Beret, expecting solid resistance, found himself hitting empty space. The subtle push applied at the precise pressure point at peak inertia made the giant spin on his own axis as if he had stepped on oil. Silence fell instantly. The strongest man in the unit had been humiliated by a touch lasting less than half a second. The sergeant staggered 3 meters from where he started, red not from effort but fury and confusion. His momentum had been used against him so cleanly it looked like magic. But this was science applied to combat. He turned with bloodshot eyes, claiming luck and that Lee had slipped like a rat and that this was not a real fight. The atmosphere turned toxic. The sergeant major looked to Bruce. Bruce calmly said, "Your strength is a gift, but your weight is a burden if you do not know where it is." Now it became serious. The Green Beret wanted to hurt him. He prepared a second attack, this time with his fists. What he did not know was that he had already lost. Bruce had read the rhythm of his anger. The air seemed to cool. The Titan threw a right punch meant to crush a skull. Instead of moving away, Bruce moved inside. He deflected the forearm and delivered a stop kick to the knee, and a short explosive punch to the solar plexus. The sound was like a heavy carpet struck with wood. The Green Beret was lifted off the ground. He flew backward nearly 3 meters into supply crates. He could not breathe. His skin turned gray. Bruce remained still. After 10 seconds, the sergeant major helped him breathe. When the Titan recovered, there was no fury in his eyes, only sacred respect born from absolute fear. Bruce helped him up and said, "Strength without precision is dead weight. Today's size only made you a bigger target." The colonel ordered silence. This never happened. The U.S. Army could not allow it to be known that their elite fighter was neutralized in seconds by a man half his size. Bruce left under the North Carolina moon. The witnesses never forgot. The lesson was simple and terrifying. Bruce Lee was more efficient. Precision defeated brute force.